What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how wide receivers can beat an overly physical, overly aggressive DB who's right on the line of scrimmage and is trying to get hands on you. So this is the specific situation that we get asked a ton of questions about, and today we're going to address what you can do, what releases you can use, and how to create more separation. Now, also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to train with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 6 different locations across the country for 2-day-long quarterback and wide receiver training camps. So check out that very first link in the description below. We are coming out to Columbus, Ohio, then Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and then Los Angeles, California. Each camp, fellas, is for 2 days. It's not one of those showcase camps with 300 people out there. We're actually going to take the time to develop you and coach you in a small group setting. So check out that very first link in the description below. If you're local to one of these states or would like to travel out, we would love to have you out to one of our camps. Let's get started with this video. So this is the situation we get a million questions about, and it's a valid situation because a lot of wide receivers just simply don't know how to beat a DB who's pressed up, not giving us any space. And so one of the best releases we can use is something called a step back release. So a step back release is something that you can use in a lot of situations, but not every situation. So let's play this full speed. So this wide receiver does a perfect example of stepping back, avoiding the contact, then getting up into the route, being able to restack him, not necessarily restack, but making a play over the top on this DB. So this step back is something that I like when you have, space. When it's maybe a 2x2 formation, when it's a 3x1 formation, and you have space, there's spacing on the play initially, you can use this. But if you're in a stack situation where you're here and you got a wide receiver behind you, maybe you're in a bunch situation, you can't use this. And we're going to talk about that in a second, a release that you can use for that situation with Justin Jefferson. But this first release is great to do. So pretty much all it is you're essentially, when that DB is going to lunge, he's going to try to get hands, you are stepping back with your front foot. Pretty much just not attacking him vertically for a split second. You take one step back to create some extra range for yourself. Because what that does is that gives you some space to operate, but also if this DB were to be overly physical and almost lunge at you where they take 2 hands and they go straight at your throat, he would be off balance. Because you got to understand, when a DB reaches, when a DB lunges, he loses his base. But most importantly, I like this release because it creates some space for us to operate. So now the mistake that a lot of guys will make on a step back is that they step back like so, they'll make this DB miss, and then they do all this lateral dancing. This wide receiver makes this route work because he does this step back release, steps back, and then he just gets up into the route, right? That is what we have to do because when it comes to press releases, it is all about keeping timing with your quarterback and spacing on the route. If you get jammed off the line and he gets a ton of hands on you, walls you all the way to the sideline, you're not keeping spacing and you're not keeping timing. So the step back allows you to do that if you don't waste time. Too many guys will do this step back and then they start dancing, they start going lateral and not actually threatening vertical. You got to step back, create some space for yourself, maybe a move to the inside, move to the outside, whatever it is. But we have to get up into the route fast so we do not waste time with my QB. That is number one priority. So best release you can use when you have the spacing or the space and you're not in a stack formation is that step back release against a physical guy. So let's play this thing again full speed, then we'll get into the next release here from Justin Jefferson, okay? Great job by this wide receiver getting into the route, also drawing a hold and being able to win on this play. So I want to show this example before we get into the Jefferson release is that when you're facing a guy who's going to be either physical right off the line or is going to be maybe a little bit more patient, which is a realistic look. Because the look where the guy just lunges at you right off the ball, doesn't give you any space, that's not realistic, fellas. You got to understand that that's something that's only heavily publicized when guys are wearing t-shirt and shorts. Because guess what? They're not threatened by the run. They're not threatened by a hard count. They know the snap count, and they know it's a pass every time. So they're going to be getting away with a lot more than what we would normally like. So in a real game, you're not going to see a whole lot of this. But you will see a coverage like this from a DB in a real game, where he's patient and then he's physical. So what this wide receiver does, he makes a cardinal sin of popping up his pad level, right? And that is when we give that DB all the leverage in the world. He decides to go with the diamond release, and before the break point, you see how he pops his chest up. He reaches with the cut. All that is going to do is have this physical DB get hands, get him off balance, and reroute him completely out of the play, solely because he picks his pad level up. So when you guys are facing a physical guy, maybe you see it on film, maybe you know just the DB that you're going to be matched up against is a more physical dude. He's a little bit bigger than you. Maybe he's a linebacker, strong safety type guy. You got to understand that he's probably going to get hands, so I got to make sure I keep a good explosive pad level position. And that's what Justin Jefferson does on this example. So he's got the situation where a DB lunges at him, and he's in a stack formation. So what can he not do? He can't take that step back like we were talking about because he'll run right into Thielen. So he needs to come up with something. And a split release is one of the best releases you can use for this situation because it will help you put yourself in a balanced base, but also keep a good pad level. So that's exactly what he does. I'm going to play at full speed. So he does a split release, DB lunges at him, but because of the pad level, he is able to shed the hands and able to get up into this route. So when we are here, this split release is exactly how it sounds. You guys have probably heard me go over this before if you're familiar with our page, but pretty much you are bringing the back foot up even with your front foot, and your front foot is going out. So you split. You get both feet in the ground for a split second. But notice, if that DB is going to get hands, look at our base and look at his base. So when a DB lunges, like I said, what happens? He loses his base. His feet go way outside his frame. He's way too far forward. He's trying to just jam us right into this wide receiver. So if I could keep a good pad level, keep a balanced base, and shed his hands, I should be able to get up into the route easily because he's got no leverage on me. He's got no base. He's just pretty much relying on me panicking and not having anything to give him off the line. So this split release is a great situation. Even if he does get hands, because of my base, because of my pad level, it is not going to affect me. I could dip that shoulder and get up into the route and create a lot of separation. That is textbook for what you want to do. So maybe if you have space, maybe if it's 2x2 and you're facing a guy who likes to lunge, you can use that step back. But you're right on the ball. He's right in your face. You're in a stack formation. You can't get off. You can't split. You can't take a step back. That split release is one of the best things that you can do against an overly aggressive guy who wants to get hands right away. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Then we'll talk about one more release that you can use in a situation where maybe a DB is off and then he rushes you to shoot hands and he tries to disguise that jam a little bit. So we'll play it full speed. Great job with the split. Good pad level. Shed the hands. Then let's get up into that route. So now, last but not least, some of you may have seen this clip before, but this is a DB who's like kind of off, maybe like about 3 to 4 yards off, and he's going to walk down to try to get hands. He's going to disguise like he's in off coverage, and now he's going to walk down to try to get hands. So this is something that a lot of wide receivers struggle with, because they don't necessarily have a plan for every situation, right? So we talk a lot about off the line of scrimmage. You come up, you want to have a plan. You want to identify the DB's leverage. You want to understand that, this is why he's playing a certain way, and this is why I'm going to use this specific release. So now a lot of wide receivers, what they see is they'll see a DB who's like maybe 2 to 3 off, and then he starts to walk down. The receivers panic. They don't know what to do. Oh, crap, my plan changed because they haven't repped enough different situations, and they don't know enough different situations. You got to be prepared for anything. Now, how you can get a leg up on this DB is if he likes to play off and then walk down to get hands, and he shows that on film constantly, you can be prepared for that, fellas. Wide receivers, it's so much more. You hear it all the time. Wide receivers sometimes don't put in enough effort in the film study. They like to watch their highlights. They like to watch how they run routes and all that stuff, and that's great, and that's stuff you definitely need to study. But you got to know your opponent just as well as you know your own game and you know your own offense. You got to know what he likes to come out with just as much as the plays that we like to run. So let's play this full speed. So this is a textbook release for this situation. It's kind of like a hesitation slide to create some separation with this DB and force the DB to make a decision. So when I go off the line and this DB is going to get hands and he's inside shade like this, I want to try to create some range for myself. So what is range? Range is the space between you and the DB. So when he's inside shade like this, he could play it one of two ways. This wide receiver does his little slide release to the outside. That forces him to make a decision. That DB could either sit to the inside leverage and try to watch his hips, or if he's going to get hands, he could either lunge at him or shuffle with him to the outside. So you kind of put him in a bind. You force him to have to commit to something. And that is where we could get separation, because we can easily react when we know what he's going to do ahead of time. Right? So he comes down, we give him this little hesitation slide. Okay, if he lunges at me, I could just dip the shoulder because I know when he lunges, what does he not have? He doesn't have a base. His feet are too flat. His feet are outside of his frame. And I could easily avoid, restack, and you see how far off balance he is. He's got too much momentum coming at me. If I could just make him miss, he will not be able to stick with me downfield. So that hezzy slide like that, when you have an inside shade guy and he wants to be real physical, you can react off of that a ton. Like let's say say, for example, right, what's the route he's running? He's running a post, like a post out, for example. So when we're here, like let's say this DB's lined up more so inside shade initially, and we think he's going to be physical. You do that little hezzy slide, and he just sits right there to the inside. Fine, I'll just take the outside release and go run the route, and I'll get up into it fast. Let's say I slide to the outside, and he's inside shade, and he stays square but slides with me. Fine, I'll just react and take the inside release. And then let's say I do the same thing. I slide, and he comes at me and tries to get hands and lunge. I can avoid and get up into the route. I got a plan for whatever situation he comes at me with because of that slide, because of me creating space for myself. It's very similar to that step back, except it's a little bit more of a lateral 45-degree angle move than a straight back move. But when you have a physical guy, fellas, and you have space, you have to create range, right? When you don't have space, you got to keep a good pad level, a good base, and be ready to shed those hands like that clip from Justin Jefferson. So let's play this again full speed one more time. This is a textbook example of what to do, how to create space, force the DB to make a decision, and that can get you a ton of separation and get you open. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to come out to one of our off-season camps, we are traveling out to 6 different states across the country: Columbus, Chicago, Dallas, Nashville, Salt Lake City, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our camps. I'll see you guys next time.